Aloha. My assignment today is to try to explain to you why we have a constitutional amendment on the ballot to deal with, what it is all about, and what the real effects are going to be. We start off with the why. The why is because the legislature wants to trick the public into giving them a huge blank check to raise hundreds of millions of tax dollars that they currently cannot get their hands on. They want to explore a new kind of tax that the state has never had the ability to use before, which is a property tax. Historically, only the counties can today impose taxes on real property. At this point, the state wants to get into that business, and they can only do that if they do a constitutional amendment. They can't pass that. Only you and I can pass that as voters, and that's what's happening in November. We are being asked to vote to give the state the power to tax real property. The second thing that you're being told as a reason to vote for this is they're promising you, if you live in Hawaii, that you will not be taxed, that this money is all going to come from out-of-state people. And the three promises they're making here to assure you that you won't be personally taxed are, number one, they're only going to tax houses and condos that are second homes. Secondly, they're only going to tax the rich people's property that's over $1 million in value. And thirdly, they're promising you that if you have a homeowner's exemption, if you're living in your own house, you will be totally exempt from any tax regardless of the value of that property. It turns out that these three promises are not true. Let's look at the original version of the bill because it was true when they first wrote this thing up. And you'll see that all of those three promises, those protections were built into it. Only residential properties were going to get taxed. No ag land, no commercial land. Only properties over $1 million were going to get taxed. And right there in the wording it says, hey, if you are living in this house and it's your personal house with a homeowner's exemption, you will be totally exempt regardless of the property's value. But they changed the wording at the last minute at the legislature, and it's important to see what changes they made. Here you see first they took away the residential limitation. That means they can tax anything and everything. Commercial properties, ag land, nursing homes, anything is on the table to be taxed. Let's look at the next change that they made. You see there that the homeowner's exemption went away. In other words, the promise that if you're living in that house with your homeowner's exemption in place, you won't be taxed, that is gone. They can tax your house as well as any other property. Let's look at the final change they made. The $1 million limitation, once again gone. They can tax any property, $500 on up, value no longer comes into play. So all three of the promises they made you to assure you that they were only going to get this new money from out-of-state people went away, and now everybody in the state and all properties in the state are up to being taxed. Now, who are the winners and losers in this game if this thing goes through? The big winner, as you can see, is the state legislature. Let's look at what this lets them do. They have the absolute power to tax all they want, and they can end up shifting the entire budget of the school system over to property taxes anytime they want to. The legislators who are behind this have already said they want to start off by raising $500 million. That's 1/4 of the entire DOE budget for this year. It's only a question of time before they shift the rest of the DOE budget over and have $2 billion of money available to spend on other things. If they want to get really creative, the wording of this also lets them take all the money that's being spent for the University of Hawaii system. That's over $1 billion a year. They could shift that over to property taxes as well. It's important that you take the time to read the specific wording of this as it appears on the ballot because it's not what it started out to be. So, this is something that has to be defeated at the ballot box. It's a terrible thing for most of us who live in the state. Let's look at who's going to benefit in terms of the teachers. You'll see that there is no guarantee of the teachers getting a single penny from this proposition if it goes through. Who are the losers? The losers for sure are anybody who is a renter in this state. If you don't own your house and you are renting somewhere, you will get a rent increase. The only question is how big it's going to be. 43% of everybody living here is a renter. And if you are a renter and you're voting for this, you're voting to have to spend more money yourself. Let's look at the counties. Counties' finances are a very complicated subject, but the reality is all of the counties are going to be crippled financially if this goes through. Their bond ratings are going to go down. They won't be able to raise the money to provide essential services if they have to compete with the state for your tax dollars. Affordable housing. Anyone who's in favor of affordable housing should vote against this, because you cannot add more expense to property ownership and think that you're somehow enhancing affordability of housing. It goes exactly the other way. And the last group of losers is pretty clear. You, me, and everybody else who lives here in the state. The cost of living in Hawaii today is the second highest in the country. The tax burden, the combined tax burden absorbed by the people of Hawaii is the second highest in the entire country. If this goes through, we are good candidates to become number one in both of those two categories. We really don't want to do that to ourselves. So, I encourage you, give this a lot of thought, read through it, understand what it's really going to do to you and everybody else who lives in this state. It is a terrible idea. The reality is this is just a gambit by the state to get their hands on more money that they can spend on other things. We should not let it happen.